When did you first become aware of William Osler?
Very, very early in my medical school career.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very early. Probably first year or whatever. I was at Western at that time. I really came to Osler in a couple of different ways, I guess. When I, through medical school, clearly was, the things that people talk about Osler, the patients and all that kind of stuff. And I certainly agreed with all that. I mean, that was happening. And I was a great believer in teaching beside the patient and all that kind of stuff. So that everybody knew that was what Osler had done. And the second thing about Osler, I think, was the idea of his humility. And there always is the story that was told to me, and it's true that, a story that Osler was with a patient that was dying, and he, with all the students, and he left the room and he started to whistle. And the students asked him, why are you whistling, sir? And he said, so I do not weep. And then when I was a resident, I mean, Cushing was such an important, soul, almost a model for that. And Penfield too, and this and that. And again, Cushing had written the biography of Osler, and so that part was part of the neurosurgical lore. And so again, he came in from there. And then when I went to McGill, McGill has the Osler Library, so that was one part of it. One of my teachers there, Professor Feindel, was very interested in the Osler Library, and so I got involved with it really through him, through Dr. Feindel, and then as soon as I got involved, I got more and more involved, and really for the last 10 years or so, I've ran the standing committee of the Osler Library, and I became the Honorary Osler Librarian and a bunch of things like that. So being I love libraries. Libraries are sort of, an amazing thing for me. It's just, I love the idea that each book has a story, someone wrote it, someone put it together, someone bound it, someone put the, the leather covering or whatever covering on it, and then other people have owned it, put little notes in it and all the rest of it. So each book has a story, has its own story through life. And the more stories that are told, the better. And the other thing is, no matter what people say, I think books still have a component of that story is something that the internet cannot catch. The ability to have history and medicine libraries, that a student can come in and actually see something and watch something in that, everything from a Babylonian tablet about how to cure some type of eye disease to what we know about AI in a library that's historical, has value, I think, has very important value. It used to be said that the Osler Library was the soul or the heart of McGill University, that every medical student, was part of him or her, that that was part of you. It's in your building, you go there, you study there, you go into this area, you smell the books, you have the feeling of what's going on, and the exhibitions there and all that aspect. So part of it is that. There's one thing to have the building, one thing to have the books, but the real thing is the human component. The Osler Library has Osler's ashes, and it has his wife's ashes. And I've always felt that, he's with his books. And pretty nice. It's something he loved, something he had around him all the time. And in a sort of magical sense, if you have any spirituality or have any sort of ideas about that, the idea that he's there too, in one way, he's sort of watching over you too, I think is a nice way to think about it.
Do you have any favorite aphorism that have helped you or that you?
Well, the ones I tell my students even now, sometimes, you're going to lose. The forces are against you and you lose. And if you can sort of rise up and really make those individuals who have, voted against you or in any way, shape, or form, or whatever it happened to be, and show them that you even work harder, you're not going to stop whatever you're going to do. Don't necessarily give up, because what you're going to do if you keep working at it is the other individuals, you're basically going to show them that you're just going to keep working at it. And I think he was like that a little bit too. Like there are many times I'm sure he shouldn't have done various things or should have done various things, or people thought that what he was doing was wrong, but he still went ahead and did it.
Why do you think it's so important for young people and young medical students and others to know and appreciate Osler and the history of medicine?
Well, going back to the library, let's say the Osler Library or any library of history of medicine, and you hook it up to medicine, what happens is that you need to bridge the humanities in some way. And so the library sort of acts on one side as a bridge, between medicine and the humanities.
Right.
And really the question is, how wide is that bridge going to be? If you're going to think that that bridge is going to be very narrow, and the world is going to be artificial intelligence taking care of everything, there's something lost there in the humanities part. But what I think we should do is make the bridge even wider. Let the communication between the humanities and medicine be even a better communication. And obviously libraries, there's many ways of doing that. There's poetry, there's all kinds of ways of doing that. But I think that we've got to make this bridge between the humanities and medicine much wider. And I think Osler helps to sort of widen that road. Because if you look at it carefully, I mean, he, in his own way, I think, loved people. He had this ability to have everybody love him. I sort of think of him as a person that would go along in the hospital and talking to someone who's cleaning the floor just as much as anybody else. I just think that that's what he would do. And the idea of opening his library to, the latchkey kids and all the rest of it, and having them over at his home and all, he didn't have to do any of that. He had a wife, he had a child, he had all kinds of other things. He's writing a book, and who knows how many articles. He didn't have to do that, but he did.
Tell us about this last year with you as the president of the American Osler Society. How has that been, and what were some of your goals?
Well, I think my major goal was engagement, predominantly of medical students, residents, and also maybe more mid-career types of individuals. I clearly understood that it was easier for medical students, less easy for residents, and certainly even more difficult for the sort of middle career type of doctor to be engaged with the Osler. And so the things I was able to do, one of the things that when I was, let's say, being involved in organizing the meeting in London, England, for example, many of the medical students couldn't come because of the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday thing, and they couldn't get those 3 days off. So I pushed pretty hard to make it Saturday and Sunday. And of course, like most of the medical students are leaving tomorrow, but they're going to be here for the morning or part of the afternoon and be able to get out. And you can get 1 day away, usually, from medical school. But at this time, they do not allow 3 days. Surgical services were not happy if you leave for 3 days, etc. So I think that was one thing that was very, very important. The second thing I focused on was getting a medical student on all the committees. And the reason for that was to really engage them with the organization and know what was happening at all the various committees. And I think that was a positive thing that occurred. The third thing was, one of the questions was, how do we get more medical students to come? And then, Dr. Mario Molina provided funding for 10 travel awards for medical students, and we came up with 2 for residents. So that was another thing that I thought was important. And then the other, let's say the more novel thing that I thought would be interesting was to develop a medical student international scholarship, with the idea that that medical students from North America could go, initially the idea was to go to the British Isles and then expand it to Europe and other parts of the world, but to sort of put together a 3-year pilot program where we would have individuals, medical students from North America, travel to Europe and do projects there. And I worked with the Osler Club of London. We organized meetings together, virtual, etc. Interestingly, they thought it was also a good idea. So they're trying to raise money to do the same thing the other way around, to have students from there come to North America and do projects here in the history of medicine, with the idea that the reason you're going to go there is it's not on the internet. You have to go there because there's something very special there. There's letters, there's something that just you can't get anywhere else. And so the idea is to get students immediately involved with really looking at primary sources and understand how to use primary sources to really do research. In one way, it's been successful.
Final question. What's been your favorite part or the most gratifying about being a part of the American Osler Society?
The people. Simple people. I've been at many, many conferences, as you might imagine, over my lifetime. This is the best, by far. There's no conference where you have so many medical students actually giving presentations that are, if they're well done, the same as everybody else. It's no question at all. The engagement with them being able to have their questions and be in that environment where they can ask questions just like everybody else in the audience. And I think that, as you mentioned, we probably get a little younger with this. It's part of this idea of seeing all these young people who are engaged and are interested and want to come back next year. And it's really something to be. I think that the American Osler Society has to be incredibly proud of what they're doing to engage these medical students and make it part of their, let's say, thinking about their future. And if even a very small number of these medical students continue their interest in the humanities, continue their interest in some of the ideas, the humidity and other things associated with Osler, I think that we've done very well. We've done very well if we can do that. The American Osler Society has done incredibly well. It may not be exactly the way it started, but I think it's the way it's got to go. It's got to be that way. It's got to be an engaging, thoroughly enjoyable group of people getting together to do something they really like to do, which is talk about the history of medicine and the humanities. Simple as that.